My name is Zoe, and I am 24 years old. I am a journalism student at the university. My days are always busy. In the mornings, I go to class and take notes. In the afternoons, I work as an intern at a small local newspaper. I write about events, take photos, and sometimes help with editing. At night, I work as a barista at a busy cafe in the city center. It is not easy, but I have big dreams. One day, my editor called me into his office. He had a serious look on his face. He told me about an event happening that evening, a big opening for a new cultural center. He said it was an important story and asked if I could cover it. This was a big opportunity for me. I wanted to say yes right away, but I remembered something. The next morning, I had to present my project for my journalism class. It was about ethics in local news, and it was very important for my grade. I stood there for a moment, thinking. If I said no to the event, someone else would take the opportunity, and I might not get another chance like this. But if I said yes, I would have very little time to prepare my presentation. I took a deep breath and smiled at my editor. I told him I would do it. Later, at the cafe, I thought about how I would manage everything. The cafe was full of people, and I was tired, but I kept thinking about my presentation and the event. Could I do both? Could I handle this? My head was full of questions, but I didn't have answers yet. All I knew was that I had to try my best. The next morning, I woke up early to prepare for class. My professor had talked about how important presentations are in journalism. He said it is not just about what you say, but how you say it. I wanted to do well, but my mind was already busy thinking about the event later that day. In class, I sat with my notebook open, trying to focus. My topic was ethics in local news, and I had worked hard on it. I wrote about the importance of truth, accuracy, and fairness in reporting. I had examples and even a small story to share. But as I listened to the professor, I started to worry. What if I did not have enough time to practice? What if I forgot something important during the presentation? After class, I rushed to the newspaper office. My editor handed me a list of people to interview at the event. There were artists, organizers, and even a local politician. He reminded me to take good pictures and write notes carefully. I nodded and told him I was ready. When I arrived at the cultural center that evening, the place was alive with energy. People were laughing, talking, and taking pictures. There was music playing, and the walls were covered with colorful paintings. I walked around, interviewing people and taking pictures with my camera. Everyone was excited about the new space. As I worked, my phone buzzed. It was a message from the cafe. They needed me to come in for my shift. They said it was very busy, and they were short on staff. I felt a wave of stress. I could not say no. I quickly finished my interviews, packed my things, and headed to the cafe. By the time I arrived, I was already tired. But I tied my apron and started taking orders. In the back of my mind, I was still thinking about my presentation. How was I going to get everything done? The cafe was louder than usual. The line of customers seemed endless, and everyone was in a hurry. Orders kept coming, and I moved as fast as I could. I poured coffee, steamed milk, and handed out pastries, but my body felt heavy. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, reminding me how late it was getting. Between orders, my mind wandered back to my presentation. I replayed the key points in my head. Ethics in journalism is about trust. Reporters must tell the truth and avoid bias. But my focus kept breaking as customers called out for extra sugar or asked questions about their drinks. Finally, the rush began to slow. I glanced at my phone. It was already 11:30 at night. I still needed to write the article about the cultural center and review my notes for class. I felt overwhelmed, but there was no time to stop. When my shift ended, I walked home quickly. My apartment was quiet and small, with papers and books spread across the table. I sat down with my laptop and opened my notes from the event. The interviews were good, and I had taken some strong photos. I started typing, but my eyes felt heavy. I pushed myself to finish the article, adding quotes and describing the colorful atmosphere of the event. When I was done, I sent it to my editor. One task was complete, but the hardest one was still ahead. I took a deep breath and opened my presentation notes. The words on the page blurred as I read them. My hands were shaky from too much coffee, and my head ached from the long day. I tried to practice out loud, but my voice was weak. My sentences sounded rushed, and I forgot some of my points. I stared at the clock. It was almost 2 a.m. My body begged for sleep, but my mind refused to stop. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes for a moment, and wondered if I could find the strength to keep going. The next morning, my alarm went off at 6 a.m. My body protested as I got out of bed, every muscle feeling heavy. I washed my face with cold water, hoping it would wake me up. My reflection in the mirror looked tired, with dark circles under my eyes, but I told myself I could do this. I packed my notes and left for class. The walk to campus felt longer than usual. My legs dragged, and my thoughts were a mix of fear and determination. What if I forget everything? What if my classmates can tell I am not ready? I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "You have worked hard, just try your best." The classroom was already full when I arrived. My professor stood at the front, reviewing the list of presentations. He smiled at me and said my name, signaling that I was next. I walked to the front of the room, clutching my papers tightly. As I began speaking, my voice shook. I introduced my topic, ethics in local journalism, and shared the main points. I explained how journalists must always seek the truth, avoid bias, and respect their audience. My hands trembled, but I kept going. I stumbled on a few words and lost my place once. My classmates looked at me quietly, some nodding as I spoke. My professor's eyes were kind, but I could see he was waiting for more. I remembered my examples and added them, explaining how small mistakes in reporting can create big problems. By the time I finished, my heart was racing. I thanked everyone for listening and returned to my seat. The professor stood up and began giving feedback. He praised my research and pointed out areas where I could improve. I felt relief but also pride. As class ended, he called me over and said, "Your work shows effort. Just remember to take care of yourself." His words stayed with me as I walked out of the room, feeling a mix of exhaustion and hope. Walking home after class, I felt the weight of everything finally lifting. My presentation was over, my article was submitted, and I could finally breathe. As I passed the cafe, I thought about the challenges I had faced in the last 24 hours. They had tested my limits, but I had learned so much from them. When I got home, I sat at my small desk and opened my notebook. I wrote down a question to myself: what did I learn from this experience? The answer was clear. I learned that being prepared is important, but so is taking care of myself. Staying up all night, skipping meals, and stressing over perfection only made things harder. I thought about my professor's advice. Taking care of myself does not mean giving up on my dreams. It means finding balance. It means asking for help when I need it and saying no when my plate is too full. Now, I want to ask you the same question. What is one thing you have learned about balancing your responsibilities? Take a moment to think about it. Write your answer in the comments or on a piece of paper. Reflecting on this can help you manage challenges in your own life. Here is another challenge for you. Think of one small change you can make to take better care of yourself. Maybe it is sleeping earlier, asking for help, or taking a short break when you feel overwhelmed. Share your idea with someone, or try it this week. Small steps can make a big difference. As I finished my notebook entry, I felt a sense of peace. The past day had been exhausting, but I came out stronger. I closed my eyes for a moment and smiled. I knew the road ahead would not be easy, but I was ready to keep going. Dreams take time and effort, but they are worth it. My name might not be in big headlines yet, but one day, it will be. Until then, I will keep learning, growing, and taking care of myself along the way.